Today we are going to take a look at 4 brain changes that happen if you become addicted to adult sites. Scandinavian Bob here, hi. Yeah, a real voice and person behind this video who has been involved in the porn addiction community for more than a decade now. So if you're getting tired of all these fake AI videos out there, consider subscribing. Now you should know that we are not talking about emming in and of itself here, but a real addiction to adult sites. You see, so many guys think that emming and watching adult sites affect the brain the same way, but it doesn't. Now, I have learned about these brain changes from Gary Wilson's website and his book Your Brain on P. But even so, I'll start with a short disclaimer.
Disclaimer, this video is information only and it's not medical advice. If you need medical advice, please see a professional.
Okay, so here are the 4 brain changes. Sensitization, desensitization, hypofrontality, a malfunctioning stress system. Oh yeah, and you should know that these are the 4 fundamental brain changes that happen in any addiction, from gambling to alcohol to cocaine to crystal meth, and yes, also in addiction to adult sites. But remember, we are now talking about those who are addicted, because not every guy who has used adult sites has developed a real addiction to it. So, sensitization basically means a super memory of pleasure. Think of sensitization as pathways in your brain that go from your triggers to you acting out. And you have walked this pathway so many times that it has become completely ingrained. It's like if you walk in a field of long grass. At first, it's heavy going, but if you keep walking on that same place many times, finally you have created a path or even a rut that is very easy to walk on. Well, that's what's happening inside your brain as well. Sensitization means that you have created a super path to your addiction activity, and when you are hit by a trigger, the sensitized pathways fire up and start screaming for you to act out. And the scary part here is that when they start screaming, it is actually easier to relapse than to not relapse. So why is this? Well, because think about the rut in the grass field again. It is so much easier to walk that rut than to walk in the long grass beside the rut. So when the sensitized pathways are activated, they trigger powerful cravings. And the nasty thing here is that even if you manage to stop using, these pathways will never really go away completely. Now, don't freak out here, because they do become weaker and they become dormant and fall asleep, so to say. However, for many addicts, they can be reactivated again if they start playing with fire once more. This is also, for example, why most sober alcoholics need to stay away from even having just one drink, because if they do, the sensitized pathways can start firing again and bam, they suddenly find themselves back in the addiction hellhole. Oh no. This is also why sometimes people reach out to me asking if moderation of adult sites is okay after the reboot. And to them I say, you should know that there is a big risk that the sensitized pathway starts firing again. So I really would recommend against it. Why play with fire? But of course that's up to you. Okay, and so then we have desensitization, which basically means a numb pleasure response. You have been hammering your brain's dopamine system for so long that you now have less sensitivity to whatever dopamine you make. Now, this is so nasty because it affects everything in life. Since you now are less sensitive to dopamine, every day-to-day activity that normally would feel somewhat pleasurable, like socializing, listening to music, playing a game, working on your goals, watching a sunset, and so on. Well, if you are really desensitized, those small things can no longer really give you any pleasure. And desensitization is also the reason behind why guys who are addicted to adult sites escalate and start watching harder and more shocking stuff. They do it because they are so desensitized that the normal vanilla stuff no longer do anything for them. So in a desperate attempt to get the same dopamine buzz, they often find themselves watching all kinds of weirder and weirder stuff. Now this is so nasty because if you get really desensitized, then even that can stop working. And man, that's a bad place to be in. Let me tell you, because now everything else in your day-to-day life really pales in comparison and you can't get any pleasure anywhere. Man, talk about being stuck in a dark, black depression hellhole there. And this is also I see with a lot of guys who are reaching out to me. In fact, at my lowest point in my reboot, I was actually down there. And I would not recommend it. However, don't freak out because desensitization is fully reversible. Once you stop using whatever you are addicted to, then your brain's dopamine system will start growing back more of those small dopamine receptors and you get more and more sensitive to dopamine again. Isn't that great? Now, this takes a while, and just how long it takes, well, it's different for everyone. However, most people have started to notice a big difference in dopamine sensitivity by the 90-day mark. Some sooner than that, and some a bit later, but just keep going and you will get there. I will continue in part 2 where I will talk about the rest of the brain changes and also what you can do to potentially help speed up to reverse those changes. Welcome to part 2. Let's continue where we left off. Yeah, so those are the 4 brain changes and we talked about how desensitization robs you of pleasure and joy in everyday life and how the messed up dopamine system can really make all those things you normally enjoy seem grey and boring. But unfortunately, it doesn't end there because dopamine is involved with so many things. This is why addiction to adult sites can come with other nasty things as well, like for example, low motivation and drive, social anxiety, concentration problems, brain fog and poor short-term memory, low self-esteem, feelings of fear, shame, and that the world is a scary and overwhelming place in general. Okay, but let's move on to the next one, which is hypofrontality. Now, hypo means less than normal, and frontality refers to the part of your brain that is right behind your forehead, named prefrontal cortex or PFC. So it basically means less than normal functioning PFC. And your PFC is the very control center of your brain. Its job is problem solving, planning, attention and focus, pondering consequences, and regulating goal-directed behavior. In other words, it is like your brain's captain. It is supposed to plan your future and also stop you from doing stupid things. So you can probably see where I'm going with this. Hypofrontality is nasty because it gives you less blood flow to your PFC and makes your whole control center underperform. This also means that when you are hit by urges with a poor functioning PFC, you actually have less control over your actions. Ouch. Yeah, so now you understand why it sometimes feels impossible to control yourself when attacked by cravings. The last brain change is a malfunctioning stress system. And this basically means that you get more easily stressed out by small things in life, and it can also ramp up your anxiety levels in general. And not only that, it often starts screaming for you to use your addiction in order for it to calm down. It is kind of twisting your arm, forcing you to give it what it wants, or else it's going to make your day a living hell with cravings, withdrawal symptoms, and all kinds of other nasty stress symptoms. And the nasty thing here is that stress tends to fire up the sensitized pathways, the ones we talked about in part 1. The malfunctional stress system is also one of the reasons behind why I so often warn you guys about stress in the beginning of your reboot. Because even small things that stresses you, that normally wouldn't be a problem, can in combination with the dysfunctional stress system become this overwhelming stress monster that becomes the straw that breaks the camel's back. So, now when you understand a bit more about these brain changes, you are probably also starting to see why quitting can be so hard. You have the desensitization there, making your life look grey and meaningless, like nothing other than what you are addicted to really matters. So, of course, that's going to make it hard not to relapse. And then you have the sensitized pathways giving you powerful craving as soon as it sees something that reminds it of your addiction. And on top of all of that, the addiction has given you less self-control by weakening your PFC. And as the final nail in the coffin, just as a nice bonus, your stress responses go all crazy from time to time. So to really drive this home, if the brain changes could speak, desensitization would say, I can't get no satisfaction. and the sensitized pathways would instantly poke you in the shoulder and go, "Hey, I got just what you need." And your stress system would scream, "I need something to take the edge off, now!" And finally, hypofrontality would sigh and say, "Bad idea, but I just don't have the energy to stop you right now." Oh man, yeah, so it's not so easy to overcome an addiction, but don't freak out because you can do it. If I could do it, you can do it. And remember, when you stop acting out, these brain changes will start to go away, one by one, on their own, except for the sensitized pathways. But even that one will become weaker and fall asleep, so to speak. Now, if you want to help speed things up, then meditation is perhaps the best tool you can find for strengthening your PFC. And it's no coincidence that many nofappers have meditation in their toolbox. And you should also know that every time you are hit by a trigger and you choose to not follow it, you are actually strengthening your PFC a bit. So don't be afraid of triggers and urges. Look at them the way you view dumbbells in the gym. Each time you say no to a trigger, it is like you are doing one more biceps curl, but for your PFC instead of your arm. Other than that, physical exercise and brain-healthy foods may help your PFC as well. And that is also true for your desensitization, as for example high-intensity interval training has been shown to help grow new dopamine receptors. Intermittent fasting and cold showers can also help desensitization. Oh yeah, cold showers, hello! But a bit of a warning here. Don't take these to the extreme. Please be careful and remember that more is not always better. Socializing may sometimes also help increase the number of your dopamine receptors, but probably not if you happen to be at the bottom of the dominance hierarchy. And so then there is also some evidence pointing towards sunshine as helping to upregulate your dopamine system. And lastly, I'm a bit hesitant to share this, but since I really want to share helpful things with you, I'll do it with the disclaimer of you have to do your own research and everything you do is at your own risk. Okay, so now, there are some studies on animals showing that a supplement called CDP choline has been able to increase dopamine receptors up to about 18% if I remember correctly. Now, these are animal studies and we do not know if it works the same on humans. And also, don't think you now have to start using supplements in order to recover, because you don't. I'm just sharing interesting things here. And yes, I do take CDP choline myself. Just like I take cold showers, I do physical exercise, and sometimes I do intermittent fasting. But remember, do your own research, be careful, and use your head whenever you want to try something. Now, there's really not much you can do about the sensitized pathways and your stress system other than don't feed the addiction, because every time you do, you are also feeding and strengthening those two brain changes. So once more, as long as you stay away from acting out your addiction, your brain will rebalance on its own. So it's not like you have to do any of these tips in order to recover. Your brain will recover just fine on its own. And speaking of rebooting, if you ever wondered how long it's going to take your brain to recover after all the years of porn, then you can try my free recovery time estimator using the link below. So hey guys, take a look at the video you see on the screen right here if you want to know whether or not you should reset after you had a slip or two. Just take a look right now and you'll see exactly what I mean.